Welcome back, Mando.
Ho, ho, ho. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to another exciting Bantha Tracks bonus show. And it's also Mandivision After Dark. How about that? I am your host, Nargai Tom. And thank you so much for once again checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Make sure you're following us on those socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta. Mandivision at Blue Sky, and of course you can email the show at mandivisiontom@gmail.com. Well, we have a little bit of Star Wars stuff that was in the news, and it was news that I couldn't resist talking about. So we're doing Mandivision After Dark. We're doing a Bantha Tracks bonus show to kind of share the news, and the news isn't necessarily the right word, but in the news, we're newsworthy. A conversation starter at the very, very least. So, I feel like we should just not waste any more time and get right into it. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
All right, Bucketheads. While appearing on a recent episode of Pod of Rebellion, which is a Rebels rewatch podcast hosted by most of the cast of Star Wars Rebels, Vanessa Marshall, Tira Sakar, and Taylor Gray, along with John Lee Brody. Henry Gilroy, writer of many, many, many episodes of Star Wars Rebels, came on to the podcast and noted that the idea of making Sabine a Jedi had been floated during the writing of the show, but it was ultimately discarded. Quote, "It was absolutely not the plan. We really felt that not only did it step on Ezra's story, it was a weak retread. We already did this," end quote. Gilroy went on to say that, quote, "The idea of Sabine training as a Jedi when she is already this fantastic warrior of her own type, we felt like this is overkill," end quote. And I'm here to tell you that I couldn't agree more. If you remember during our Ahsoka watch party episodes, when that show first debuted, the notion that Sabine had some sort of low-level force sensitivity was one of the head-scratching moments of the series. It felt out of place. It felt kind of forced, in a sense, so that you could have this master and apprentice relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine. So Henry Gilroy coming out and saying that, kind of confirming, I think what a lot of people thought, that it seemed like it was out of the blue, in him saying that he, along with, sounds like the other writers of Rebels, were sort of taken aback. Now, of course, it must be stated that, of course, Dave Filoni is also part of the writing team on Rebels, and maybe he ultimately acquiesced to the majority of people, but he wanted to keep that move in his back pocket, and he got to play it, at a time when he was the sole writer of the Ahsoka show. And if memory serves, that was one of my sort of comments at the end of the Ahsoka series, was that maybe that show needed a bit more of a writer's room, because I at the very, maybe stating it kindly, I thought Ahsoka was uneven at best. I think it did some good things. It did some things a little clumsily, and none more so than I think the whole trying to make Sabine into a Jedi, because agreeing with Henry Gilroy completely, it feels redundant. It feels unnecessary, because you have Ezra. Ezra is the Jedi apprentice in the show. Let Sabine be a super awesome Mandalorian warrior. Why would you want to mess with that? Why does Sabine have to be both? And I think it goes into this thing where Star Wars can't get out of its own way sometimes. We can't not have a story with somebody force sensitive and doing Jedi things and doing Sith things. And I feel like it is really pigeonholing the franchise in many, many regards. We've talked about this sort of, I feel else almost ad nauseum, but the powers that be at Star Wars don't seem to want to take note to what myself and many, many other people who watch and review and talk about Star Wars online have to say about it. And it's like we keep forcing like these Jedi ideologies onto other characters who don't need them, despite the fact that we spent so much time seeing that many of the ideologies of the Jedi are flawed and failed and ultimately led to the fall of the Jedi and the Republic. You know, other elements, I talk about this a lot with Luke when we get on the topic of Luke Skywalker and the idea that he wants to bring back the Jedi Order exactly as it was. And we all know the flaws in the ideology there, that there was hubris and there was a sort of meddlesomeness to the Jedi Order during the prequel era. So it's a little head scratching, a little frustrating to kind of keep forcing these kind of things onto characters. And again, Sabine is a strong character on her own. She doesn't need to be and a Jedi. It's not necessary. Not every single person in Star Wars needs a lightsaber. So I thought it was very revealing and really cool of Henry Gilroy to come out and be very honest and direct with us that, like, hey, this was talked about and we all thought it was crazy. Okay, he didn't use the word crazy, but it was voted against. It was decided not to pursue. And then X amount of years later, Dave Filoni takes it on his own. He's like, you know what? I am going to play that idea. I did like that idea. And I'm going to expand upon it and go in different ways with it. And, you know, we'll see how things shake out. Ahsoka Season 2 is probably not too far away from being on our screens. And we'll see how that continues to play out. Again, it was one of the elements of Season 1 that I bumped up against quite a bit. And again, it's not because I don't like Sabine. I think Sabine is a great character. I think Mandalorians are amazing. They're like my favorite people in Star Wars. So, you know, but I don't go around saying, oh man, wouldn't it be great if Boba Fett had a lightsaber too? You know, it's just Din Djarin doesn't need a lightsaber either. He doesn't need to be force sensitive. He's been doing just fine. So, again, I liked these comments. I thought it was really revealing, telling, and I appreciate Henry Gilroy coming out and sharing them on that podcast. I think it was really, really neat. And nice to know that it had been discussed. It had been sort of ultimately turned down. But again, I do think it's indicative of sort of this thing that exists within Disney Star Wars where we just have to have lightsabers all the time. You know, we have a movie coming out, Mandalorian Grogu. You know there'll be stuff going on in that. I'm sure of it. I'm sure there'll be Jedi stuff at some point in there. I bet wouldn't be surprised to see familiar faces pop up in that. Obviously, Starfighter's coming out. Again, the alleged plot is Gosling protecting a force-sensitive child. You know, there's a lot of great books in the Star Wars canon that don't have anything to do with Jedi or Sith. Don't have anything to do with lightsabers. It's a rich universe. I wish we would stop going to the well on so many of these things. And I guess that's all I really have to say about it. If by chance you want to hear Henry Gilroy's comments, I mean, it's Pot of Rebellion is the name of the show. That's where the interview was done, and check it out for yourselves. If not, I gave you the quotes, the juicy parts. But I mean, I'm sure there's a big fuller interview there, and then there might be some insights into the writing of certain episodes of the show that you might find fascinating. Meanwhile, we are doing our own Rebels rewatch here on Mandivision, so you can tune into those once a week. We appreciate you guys who've done that and supported the show as we re-explore Rebels. And we will continue that at least through the end of the year, right? Season 3 is going to wrap up pretty soon, and then the final season begins. And then we'll be in 2026, and we have all kinds of good stuff lined up for that. So, that being said, Bucketheads, we're going to wrap this little bonus show up. We're going to get out of here. Go be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, and amazing. And we'll be back with another Star Wars Rebels rewatch before you know it. All right, Bucketheads, take care, take it easy, and remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Purple guy, Mando girl, and Ezra Bridger. My, look how you have grown.